Gender preference, she, her. The law industry are wide. People are fighting justice all around the world, and that's exactly why we actually have to ban this lawyer award. What is actually the problem? These lawyer awards are limited and focused only on privileged community, and only where they can pay and connection with the famous people that actually can benefit from them. What is our goal here as the opening government? We want to make it more fair to actually how people can see their more potential and fulfill check and balance for this lawyer itself. And how we gonna achieve that? We're gonna prove to you how bad this system with the unclear parameter, and the second one, how is the impact of this award to the individual and the community and also the firm, and the third one, how it actually look like without this award in the status quo. But I'm gonna explain how we actually ban this award itself. We're gonna fully abolish the existence of this award in everything way, so meaning there's no awards anymore, and how the selection is actually unclear, and how the impact of output of this title itself. Move to my first argument. How actually the system look like? They have an unclear parameter, even though in the motion that stated, oh, it's gonna based on the committee observation and how the client itself, but it's still unclear how you actually have to be good in front of the client, how you actually can be good in front of the observer itself. Even when selection by the committee, in order to actually being selected, you have to join based on the two things. The first is money and two connection, and all these two selection is bad. Why? The first one, money. Money, if we are talking about how you only to tap in or need money, there's actually no reason why you have to pay in order, where this should be an appreciation of hard work by this lawyer itself. The second one, it's not gonna be accessible for everyone. Everyone meaning for the people that underprivileged but still have a job of lawyer and fighting the rights, right? For underprivileged who fights for people who also underprivileged, like in Indonesia, in Africa, or something like that, they have no chance to actually tap in this selection, right? Where they work hard to help people who hurt by the system, who face the injustice of the system itself, like the sexual assault in minority and something like that. This is actually the one who we have to praise, and they have to opportunity to actually be part of the award itself, but they can't do how the selections to tap in this award. They cannot be recognized. They don't have money to pay to begin with. So meaning this award are already have no clear parameter and not equal to begin with. And why it's actually important? We are talking about Liar of the Year. It's actually a heavy title that imposed to the how you actually have a branding and image in the industry, right? It should be true and equal to all the lawyers in the world itself, because what? It's Lawyer of the Year, meaning it's the worldwide title. That's why it should be have a really true title and the reasoning and the selection to begin with. And the second one, why it's bad by the connection itself. Connection are likely to be the famous one lawyer that already exists for a really long time and have a lot of experience, right? And likely they actually the first thing, they are hard to approach to begin with, they are limited, they are not accessible to everyone. They are likely to exist in the main place like America and something like that. They're really gonna be hard to approach due to their own popularity, and how you actually can be close to them, it's already hard to begin with, and for only some few people who actually have the connection. So based on you actually can have connection based on only two things, based on luck and also based on the power of the relation that you actually have. Even when based on luck, it's not gonna be likely you're gonna be always remember, and they also gonna be met a lot of people, right? So making the connection to very first, it's already hard, and so injustice due to how it's gonna be focused on only limited. If we are talking about the connection, we also at the same time talking about the human itself. Human actually have the bias to begin with in their brain, right? It's also gonna be limited and cannot to cater for all the underprivileged people, underprivileged lawyer to begin with. Even if when they can be catered by underprivileged, it's still 50-50 how they actually can be pushed by this connection to tap in the award itself, meaning there's still no accessible for this underprivileged lawyer to actually gain the title itself. In conclusion, this existence of the system are praising this lawyer to be good and have money at the same time, and how you actually can really make connection, where actually the purpose of the lawyer is to fight the justice itself. So it's gonna be harder to have the profession being a lawyer and how they want to seek a validation in this. So that's why we this is really important for us to actually delete in this award itself. But let's see how it's actually the impact to the firm. The firm are of course seeking the awards because what this is including the image of the firm itself to gain more popularity, to gain more job. It's likely to be monopoly of these lawyers to join in one company to make this firm to actually can be the best of the best. Why it's bad? It's gonna be stuck in one place. It's only focusing on gain profit and also at the same time to gain the power that exists, right? This is in order to gain this award itself. The harm is gonna be manifesting by how this firm are likely to be expensive for the people that in the world. They sell the title of this. It make it hard to access for people and seeking a good lawyer itself. So no variety, no opportunity on how people can hire these lawyers. Right? It's close the opportunity to privileged people only, right? It's gonna be focused because what they have the title, of course, they're gonna be make the pay to be more expensive. Where in our side, it's gonna be this lawyer are gonna be more variable to all the firm itself, more opportunities to people to actually type in and hire them, and not gonna be limited on focus on how this gonna be benefit on one privileged company itself. How likely a lawyer is gonna be joined of this type of firm, that bad firm? They're likely to seek comfortability. They push because what they are lawyers. This is their job. They push to stay survive. They seek money from this. So it's a job. So it's really likely today tap in this monopoly firm. But let's move how it impact to the community. It will be about gain fame and the base on money and power. Where about lawyer, it's how about you actually fighting justice for people who gain injustice. Not truly show how you actually being a lawyer. This create a toxic community even though same still pursue other things. But they still likely gonna chase this type of title. Why? Gain title, you gain more money, more job. It's likely good for privileged people only. In reality, these good lawyers are needed for people who overpowered by these privileged people. They got the harm of this title are being accessed to begin with. That's why it's really important for us to abolish this award due to starting how you actually, due to the impact that exists when the system is already hard to begin with, the system is already unclear to begin with and not accessible to everyone, meaning this award are only actually focusing on how for these privileged people. When you see how the selection, money, and also at the same time is the power itself, this is only focusing on the privileged people only. And also how the impact of this title itself are already pushed by us and why proud to propose.
Thank you for the speech. General reminder for everyone, please do try to accept an offer POI, given that it's going to make the debate much more interesting, much more engaging. All right, calling upon leader of opposition here.
Let me set. Test. Okay. Let me set things up. Okay. My preferred pronouns are he, him. One quick setup before I move into my substantive and my characterization, right? I think panels, you have to notice that in this regard, OG actually does a half stance because they claim at the start that sure, we disagree about lawyer awards and it is inherently harmful, but they do not essentially disagree with the essence of awards in itself, right? So awards will still exist under their side of the house. Though, in the spirit of the motion, however, it is important to note that it is banning, right? So if their issue and their entire burden on this debate is about how, there are issues with this lawyer awards, then the only solution is quite simple. Well, we will just solve that particular issue, right? We just change some, make it like more accessible and whatnot. So that entire kind of harm coming from OG is completely goes kaput. Now moving into like my characterization and as well my framing of this debate, right? I think it is important to note that there is a lack of characterization about what exactly is the incentive of lawyers, what is the world of lawyers like, and that is what us at Opening Opposition will actually come into this debate. Okay, so first and foremost, panels, I think it is important to note that the world of lawyer is actually based on reputation, right? There are so many lawyers, and how do people actually see which lawyer is good, which lawyer is bad? It's not of your price, it's of your name, how many cases you have done, how many cases you have successfully taken. In this regard, it gives incentives for lawyers to try and find and garner their reputation, make it better, make it stronger, right? Now, in that regard, that is something that here under Opening Opposition we have established. Now, secondly, as well, we move into like why exactly does this lawyer awards actually achieve that? Now, panels. Let's first and foremost engage against the harm coming from opening government, right? Because I think opening government's entire case basically boils down to two, that one, this is not fair, and two, it is prone to exploitation. Now, let's talk about exploitation, right? How exactly does exploitation happen in the law industry? In the law industry, it usually happens, the most common way is that they actually bribe or like they go against like judges, right? Not exactly in the essence of lawyers. But hypothetically, let's say that there is some kind of bribery or some kind of like exploitation through connections or money in terms of like these awards. It is unlikely, and we are going to prove it to you why. Because the law firm industry is one, very large and competitive, and two, the committee who actually manages these awards are actually people who study law. They're not just some random nobodies, right? So in this regard, there is so many risks for you to actually try and exploit this kind of community. Because, for example, if you're talking about money and reputation, it is so, the power that the lawyer holds in terms of bribing is actually non-existent, because those who want to be bribed can just, oh, you're trying to bribe me, I'm going to sue you, and immediately all your reputation, all that money completely gone. That is a risk that these lawyers and these law firms are not willing to take, right? Now moving into like a substantive in this debate. We have two substantive. One is, of course, an addition into how exactly this gives incentive for lawyers to do better, and secondly, about principally how rewarding hard labor is something that is a right. Okay, moving into our first substantive, is how exactly this gives incentive for lawyers to do better. Okay, firstly, we already described to you, we already characterized to you the nature of the law industry, right? It is the lawyer industry. It is something that is reputation-based. Lawyers want to get a name for themselves. They want to be known. How will this actually manifest? In two ways. One, law firms and lawyers will now take on more cases because there is an incentive. The fact that the way that they are judged is from the amount of cases they take and the successful amount of cases, it becomes an incentive for them to try and increase their reputation. Even more so, because of the existence of these lawyer awards, there is a chance for them to actually be labeled as, oh, top 30 lawyers in the world, or like top 50 lawyers in America or something. This reputation, this title actually matters, and it is something that directly benefits them. Secondly, as well, law firms will also do better for their clients because they want feedback, right? Explicitly, it is stated in the context slide with the motion that one of the ways that they are judged are not only from the amount of cases and the amount of successful cases, but also from the feedback from their clients. So in this regard, it gives an incentive for these lawyers to do better in the current status quo, and that is something that government has to prove also exists in the side of house if they ban it. Now, moving into our second substantive and our main contribution in this debate is regarding how exactly hard labor is a principal right. Now, panels, it is important to note the nature of labor is to be rewarded, right? You don't do anything for free. If you do labor for free, that's exploitation in this regard, and we don't want that. I think everyone in this chamber doesn't want that. Now, in a capitalistic society, we believe that there is an inherent harm of workers being worked to death, being put into deadly and exploitative contracts, right? With the only out is like leaving the company, and of which, when you leave that company, you ruin your reputation in two ways. One, people see you as someone who is incompetent, someone who is lazy, and secondly, practically, it also makes it harder for you to get a job. And this is especially true in the law industry, where that has a great emphasis on your reputation, right? Now, inside of government, the kind of world that they want to envision actually robs people even more of of the reward of their labor. Now, lawyer awards, especially panels, has been the cornerstone of lawyers to prove their worth, not just in terms of monetary income, but also gives them a platform to be rewarded, free from the shackles of of corporate enslavement, of for example, their firm want to take all the credit or whatnot. This actually gives them agency to be able to be rewarded for their own hard work, not just for the name of their firm. Now, Now, I think let's engage on Gov's, one of the main harms that they bring in this debate is about how, okay, they cannot afford it, right? Now, panels, I think, one, it is two best case scenario coming from government to assume that only the rich can afford these registrations. Like, what are these? Are they like $1 million in this regard? No, sure. Maybe even if it's expensive, panels, we would argue that those who are willing to actually, what do you call it? Register into these awards actually have the capital to do so, because in order to be eligible and to actually stand a chance to be rewarded means you have to have had a number of cases, a number of successful cases, right? And you get paid when winning those cases in this regard. So unless government can prove to you that these lawyers who win their cases don't get paid any money, then their entire harm actually crumbles. Now, why is this actually also likely, right, for people to want to have an incentive in this regard? Okay, now moving into just a little bit on our practical benefit, is that even if they want to claim, right, that in their case that, let's say, it's a deadlock in this regard about, okay, how about the rich getting their fame and those the less privileged getting their fame. Look at what can happen here, panels, is that there is more of incentive for the less privileged to actually be rewarded or to actually enter this comparatively to those who are privileged. Why? Because usually law firms, they already have their massive reputations. These lawyers, they already have their massive reputation. If you have done so like 200 cases, just because you don't enter the lawyer awards doesn't mean your reputation completely crumbles. People still look to you. People will still go for you simply based on the fact that you have done a number of cases in this regard. Therefore, the incentive that the lawyer awards bring in this regard is to actually push the narrative that the less privileged can actually compete with the privileged. And again, we have to remind you that all of their harms regarding exploitation has been mitigated under opening opposition. Very, very proud to oppose. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech. Calling upon Deputy Prime Minister to continue the case in opening government.
My pronouns, she, her, just refer me to my position. Right. We oppose awards. I don't know how we have stance. Disprivileged lawyers, when they have this award, they have to work 10 times as hard, even though they're just better or have similar skills. For the main reason that they need, one, connection, someone recommending them, or two, people having to pay up fees to have a chance. That means that you have to pay a lot more fees, more than once, to be able then to have a reputation. In the first place, that's how they're likely to not be able to afford. Why is this award so important to those who are disprivileged? Without this award, lawyers are unable to get clients, exactly like in their side. It is based on reputation. It looks like the one who are going to be the winning in the most easiest parameter for public to take. That means that it's likely for public to overly simplify what kind of clients and what kind of lawyers that they need. This makes it unfair for lawyers who are just starting out their careers. They are good, but they cannot make good connections. The fact that someone is not able to socialize well, then to be a lawyer, to have those connections, to have the money in the first place, that means that they cannot start up conversation. They have no time then, maybe, to even socialize. That means that it becomes a problem to those who are not able to achieve this. How do we think clients should pick their lawyers then? We think you should have interviews. You think you should have experience. We think you should have based it on CVs, and we think it should be chosen by the companies, and they think that we should consult these companies before we're able to take these lawyers in the first place. I'm going to explain why then it's better. We think absent of these awards, these things will be a lot more fair, even if it's subjective. We think it's subjective to the client, therefore it's better to make them satisfied than to make the public satisfied as a whole. Which leads me to my first speaker cases, which is the parameter of big awards are not going to be good, it's going to be skewed. We're not going to leave it up to chance for it to be skewed. Our burden is not to say that this is going to be skewed, 100% monopolied, but it is therefore likely. Exactly the potential of misuse is already a thing that is able to come up as a tangible harm, exactly because it shows a flaw in the system. Therefore, closing can rebut this, and this still stands as a potential of misuse. What do we mean by a parameter being skewed? Look, the definition of a good debater or good lawyer are always unclear. This is because people are always going to be different in seeing these things. Is it the amount of the cases that lawyers win? It is the good quality of the perseverance? Is it the character of the lawyer? Therefore, is it the most experienced? Therefore, the parameter is only focused to those who are going to be subjective. The parameter is to prove that you can either be one of those things, but not to your client, but to your company. The problem is with this existing parameter is that people are always subjective. Even judges can be subjective based on tipping point and weighing. Therefore, the parameter is always going to be skewed because you're only basing it on the parameter of your own company. What does that look like on the ground? It looks like ignoring your client's feeling, working information out of them to work on a case, exactly because we think that clients, especially when they're victims, this is becoming very sensitive, this becomes a problem. We think, therefore, what happens when you're trying to prove to these companies instead is that it's going to be based on who is actually better, who's going to have better characters. We think that is already still subjective in the heads of the companies. Therefore, the parameter is always skewed to these companies, never to the client. We think that, therefore, this becomes, secondly, a potential of misuse. People are likely not to be kind, especially those who are able to have money, especially those who are able to have private companies, to those who are only, especially to those who are in private companies. They are likely to survive solely using profit, we think. Then this becomes an urgency for private companies to be able to reap as many as possible, to have these kind of profit that exists, to be able then to have better quality in the first place. Therefore, it's likely for them to actually find the people who are the most likely to get good reputation in the first place, the ones that already have money invested in them. That means the people who already have name already continue and have name, exactly because it's harder to build up non-existing names. Exactly, we think getting sued, we think it's not enough because only people who are most powerful, therefore, can avoid getting sued, being able to have money, especially because they're lawyers and they have connections with lawyers. It means that they're able to run from the case because exactly they have good connections with good lawyers. Yes?
Do you think nepotism or even privilege settings will cease to exist when you ban these lawyer awards on your side?
We think that nepotism will not cease, but it will be exacerbated and potentially going to be way, way bigger when we are able to have potential of misuse coming from opposition. We think, therefore, what happens in our side, this is likely for top people to not even understand that they're misusing this because humans have biases. This is exacerbated when they have power, so they're not even consciously doing nepotism. They think that they're doing the right thing exactly because the top people have access to promote. Therefore, it's actually harder for them to make it fair, even when they don't want to do nepotism in itself. We think that the power corrupts. We think, therefore, it makes it worse. Having exposure to those who are the best and disprivileged, this is giving exposure to those who are decently good but have all the more privilege. Let's weigh or clash what is going to be in this debate. Right, okay, so look, what is the impact and why should it be prioritized in law? Everyone goes to it to find, seek, and go to better justice. We think in this debate you cannot play as a lawyer, you cannot play as a law firm. We think you're playing as the government. A, they have the interest and responsibility to protect you from monopoly. Two, law is the place where clients are going to seek this best from. You're going to law and you're going to lawyers to be able to get that justice that you want. Therefore, it's only right for you to be able to pick the clients that is most closest to you. Three, closing cannot play as law firm actor because that's exactly unfair for the debate. As long as they profit, therefore it's fine. We think it's the only fair actor is the government. Fourthly, therefore, principle then only suits the interest of the government and the actor the most. Exactly because the benefit is that there's less monopoly, therefore it's more likely to have better competition in itself. We think therefore it's a better benefit coming from the government, coming from the actor that we're choosing in the first place. Secondly, we think which teams have the better connection to inform their clients and to actually find these private companies. Look, lawyers and clients are not always going to be well suited even when the lawyers are good or the best. A, their personality might be different, therefore it's harder for you to get the information out of them, especially when they're actually facing clients who are likely have done crime or those who are victims. That means that they're extra sensitive. Therefore, their personality has to mix exactly because you have to have similar personalities to have them talk in the first place. Two, each lawyer specializes on different issues, especially like how debaters specializes in different headings. That means that these lawyers are likely then to, even if they're the best, they do not specialize on that specific heading. Therefore, it's more likely you have to have a better lawyer when you're able to focus on consulting these people. Meaning, if you're able then to consult, you're able to get better. We think opposition wants reputation to get clients. We think exactly because of that reputation based on that award is ideal. I think a mechanism that is absent of that reputation award is exactly better exactly for that reason. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech. To close the opening half, I invite Deputy Leader of Opposition here.
or privileged law firms and up-and-coming lawyers can actually capitalize on this movement even if they don't win. Because a government side of the house idea for you to capitalize is for you to win. Opposition are not saying that you should win. At the very least, there's a stage for you to actually talk with people. At the very least, there's a forum. All of the powerful and the rich are just going to win. Notice that we are actually giving existence for them that needs the stage to gain recognition and have the necessary fortitude to be able to be recruited on law firms. If government side of the house just say smaller law firms still have the capabilities because not everyone can afford rich expensive lawyer. But then again, who will actually approach them in the first place? Who will know which smaller law firms could have actually the credibility for them to actually compete? This actually still levels out the playing field so much better. This also improves law community and the general industry. Knowing that 90% of the law community are smaller firms, not high firms, if there are bribery, small firms can actually unite and voice their concern. This case happens with smaller firms in the status quo working together, voicing their concern of the massive firms, and then in return, they are actually proposing for a betterment of the law community in general. I will take openings POI.
CV is still accessible by LinkedIn. It is accessible by the company. Why is it still inaccessible on your side?
Exactly. We're not saying that CV and interview is not something that we're going to do. Sure, this is still something that exists in our side of the house. But the benefit of award is like so much more than that. Sure, you can gain connection from LinkedIn. Sure, you can gain connection with CV. But to what extent? How many people will click you? But when you actually exist in the company, when you actually are there, when you actually talking with people, these connections are much more feasible. These connections are much more better. These connections are also will also in turn not just more feasible, but much more beneficial for all of these people. A couple of framings for this debate. So the opening government believe that law awards are too wide and privileged, that high firms will always win. At the very least, our idea that we push are that smaller firms can have the agency to prove their existence, and then there can be check and balances. Sure, you don't win, but you bring good argument. Sure, this is still something that we can actually appreciate. Sure, you don't win, but there is some ideas that we could actually appreciate. Notice that law community are not gullible, and then they actually understand, there are up and coming lawyers and the rise, even though they're not out of top 30, should we recruit them and train them because we know that there is a capability for them to grow. Nextly, correction. Connection is another reason that, it might be harder for us to tackle, but at the very least, in their side of the house, their connection will be much more scarce. We already proved to you with this awards you're able to talk to people. We already proved to you with this awards connections will actually come to you, and then you are able to actually approach them in the first place. Next, I think I already talked about CV and interviews, right? CV and interviews in nature is still much more easier to be exploited. Plus, to be interviewed, you still need a high likelihood of luck. It is better to pay your way into a competition that is still beneficial for you and is still something that is like, fine. This is not something that you're not bribing things, right? CV and interviews are only available for notable graduates panels. Notice that in the first place, government does not cater to the underprivileged with this award ceremony. We are at least giving them a chance to actually prove their existence, even if they don't win. There is a lack of lawyers in the status quo. There are so many cases in which, in our side of the house, more people will understand that, hey, there are smaller firms that we could cater to, even if they don't have the recognition that they get from like the awards. At the very least, their existence are there. Should we approach them? This is something that is much more likely from clients to actually go for. Therefore, clients' incentive to actually find lawyers are much more better because they understand not only law firms are always at the top, there are always competition down there, and which competition and which clients of lawyers can they actually approach. These are only existent on their side of the house, comparatively on their side of the house, where the only way you could win cases are for you to actually find very expensive lawyer or find their CV, which is so much harder comparatively to looking at lists of people who have achieved something and can improve in the longer run. Very proud to oppose.
Thank you for the speech. Right, to open the closing half, I invite member of government here.
I mean, it's okay. Yes. Okay. Jangan she, her. I might be talking about underprivileged people, so a little disclaimer. Just if it's sensitive, then please don't take it to any heart. Just for the competitive of the debate. Okay. I'll start my speech in 3, 2, and 1. So panels, to just a little overview of what the opening benches already exchanged towards this debate, and then also I'm going to move on to what are my case in the closing government to add on to what my other half opening government also already said throughout the debate. So OG already mentioned about how the law industry is like white, where the problem is like there's going to be limited on the going to be limited to the privileged committee, and that they want to make it fair, which is also one of our goals too. And you need there's going to be like need money, and there's going to be need connection. It's not going to be accessible for everyone. There's going to be a heavy title, which then connection is limited, not for everyone. Basically, there's going to be monopoly. Their arguments focus on why these awards lead to different gap in the privileged and the underprivileged, with what I will mention. But also, I will want to give it a little bit of an overview too of in my argument of what it is going to manifest in the relationship of the lawyers and the lawyers itself, and the whole sphere in the industry of the lawyers and in the law and the lawyers itself, not just like to the publics and to the clients and then the lawyers. And then coming to the debate, they said that awards still exist on our side, and then the world of lawyers, they basically tell the world of lawyers looks like based on the reputation. There's going to be if there's going to be some sort of bribery, it's very going to be unlikely, because they say it's risky to do so because they are people that study law, right? But we forgot that lawyers are people that defend their clients. And it's too simple-minded to think because they are learning law, then they will be in the side of the justice. If I learn accounting, doesn't mean I might not going to do corruption on the notes of the journal that I did, right? But this doesn't mean that I'm not going to cheat. They clearly agree that lawyers want money because they work hard, and we all agree on that. But this will be exactly why there is no guarantee that lawyers can be fair, because they want money in the end of the day. And then also they're pushing on the awards to prove their existence, and saying that this will be good. This will be good because it's going to prove their existence. It's going to be hard on our side because if you keep looking on the CV and the portfolio, but then looking on the whole. It's going to be easier to look on the titles, basically. But then they can really like encourage us and like foster how this whole it's all awards that the clients will see is actually going to be an awards that is it's going to be fair. It's going to be within the core and within the principle of what law is, which is to be fair, right? Then moving on to what my cases are, lawyers are given awards to the incentive for these lawyers to get the recognition of their work and to compete. Like the competition of other lawyers create a competitive sphere. Like a lawyer is a defender. Obviously, these lawyers have to defend their clients. And remember that law in status quo is easy to buy, because if you think about it, in many case, the people that win in the court are the one that can hire a high-level lawyer, and they can bribe and basically etc. This then could lead to the manifestation of the law in the lawyers' awards, because if after a lawyer gets their award, they could easily high up their work price, which could lead to a good quality lawyers that hard to hire by the underprivileged people that really actually need it. Because human nature wants to have a higher money. If I work hard to pass college or uni 4 years to study law in such a competitive, and then work in such a competitive workplace like being a lawyer, it will be hard to keep on the ethical view when we are in the court, right? So that's why we stand on creating a good lawyer and not the best, the most used, or has the most win lawyers, and prove to you how this manifests to many other factors, not just the relationship between the public clients and lawyers, but rather it's also going to it's going to manifest also in the lawyers community itself. Rather than awards that require on metrics that easily not fair enough, we should also foster a system that make representation of these lawyers much more fair within the principle of the core of the law, which is why we propose on the CV and the portfolio, because then again that's be the most fair in the end of the day. And then again, even though it's hard, but then again the process of the law itself is a long process. That's why it's needed, because in the end we want a fair environment of the law, right? So then, moving on to some of the characterization first, in terms of like the lawyers, clients, how is it going to publish the publisher, and then how to create a relationship between lawyers and lawyers. Lawyers will lead into a competitive sphere. It creates a loop of competition that you might argue is good to create motivation, but remember that competition could also lead to an ethical practice of some lawyers. Not everyone, we're not saying not every lawyers, but we all white and black to believe that some lawyers will not fight a case just to win morally, but just to win on their side. When they defend their client might be the one that have enough capital to buy the law, but in order to be a lawyer to win, they have to defend their client to win regardless of what it is, right? And clients will want to win on the court, basically. People that want to win this might come from people with enough capital to hire the lawyers, but then lead to the matrix of the lawyers to win the case, even though what they defend is not ethical. And obviously, the underprivileged people, the clients, they need defenders, but they have difficulty to find lawyers to hire. Even in the status quo, it's already like hard to find lawyers that actually want to side with the underprivileged freely, right? Just going to be like just some of the cases, some of the examples in like status quo where lawyers like goes to some viral case, and then is going to jump up to actually defend the underprivileged, and if we actually not supporting this and ban the practice of like these lawyer awards, this create for these lawyers to actually want to defend the underprivileged people, because the way to get recognition is to actually jump into a viral case and then defend the underprivileged, right? And then this also where they get the recognition, not the recognition based on the committees and also the sign up to have reputable gift awards based on the written page and etc. And then also if we talk about the publisher, how should we mechanize this then? These are people that publish cases of this publisher are people that going to publish the cases of the publics, right? Panels, remember that publisher can be biased to what they write. Publisher is the rest is to gain the stories that are good to craft. This means it's easy for people to involve to the fabric of what they want in order for their gain. And if you think of then the publisher might want to side with the minority since public viewer want that and there's going to be check and balance. But no, stories can be made. In the end, viewer wants to side to the victim. So whoever can make themselves as the victim able to be the victim in the story. If this hours based on this, yeah, it's not fair. How this then we're adding to see how this affect to the relationship of the lawyers. In many job field in status quo, sort of differences creates gaps to people in many professions, not just law. When a vet, for example, that work in a company that monopoly other clinics or like other veterinary clinics or company, they will likely the people that work there likely get a certain saltiness or a certain saltiness by other vets too. Manifestation can be the same for lawyers that going to get award. They're basically going to come from a big law firms that create a monopolize of the firms, and then again it's going to create a gap between all the lawyers, and then therefore it leads to a toxic system, toxic dynamics towards the lawyers, and this is not be good for the future of the law industry that we want. Therefore, we're very proud to propose.
Thank you for the speech. Yeah, to open the case in closing opposition, I invite member of opposition here.
Gender pronoun, she or her. First, I would like to tackle OG that said that it's going to be privileged, and this is going to be a very unfair or unclear parameter, and they do not want any awards anymore, right? But firstly, I would like to prove to you on what is the justification to ban something at the very first place, right? Firstly, on the principality of banning a certain policy, for example. This is important because if it doesn't fulfill this burden, principally, then it's even unjustified to ban it, especially because it's the government that OG says that wants to implement it, right? This is going to be on two metrics, right? First, on whether this thing is actually illegitimate, whether it is and then secondly, on whether it is very harmful. Firstly, on the illegitimacy, right? OG's credibility said that it will be based on privilege and other stuff. But OG's credibility at the end of these lawyers will be based on history and precedents, right? Of these lawyers and these law firms, which means bigger lawyers already established this themselves or big law firms will be even more elitist, right? So you give zero chance for the underdog lawyers or law firms to utilize the title of these awards to boost their reputation at the end of the day. How do we prove that, how that is going to be legitimate at the end of the day? Firstly, investigations will happen, selections will exist, eliminations of the selection exist. It won't be privilege-based. But why is it likely that it won't be privilege-based, right? Why is it those things likely to happen? Firstly, media scrutiny. It is within the interest of private institutions, just like what the info site says, that is going to be given by the private institutions, right? To make sure that their awards, especially as stated by the info slide, which means that they can exist only because of reputation, and they need those reputation, right? If these private institutions allows nepotisms, connections, or make the fee super high, they would no longer be credible enough to give these awards and be trusted by people, right? And then secondly, these awards are big and will be covered by medias and talked about in social media, articles, news, and blog posts, for example. Let me give you a characterization of how media and society works, right? Firstly, media is very open to everyone and everybody can access it, right? They love to put people down because that's the thing that would make them views, right? Thus, when they actually use their connections, when they actually do nepotism or get money to shift a court ruling, for example, this looks like Hotman Paris, for example, people do not really believe him anymore because he has shown that he is time and time again very elitist, right? And then secondly, society gives check and balances. Lawyers aren't influencers that can easily bounce back from any type of backlash that happens to them, right? Because they interact with people's lives. They can, the degree of someone's sentence, for example, determine the rest of an individual's livelihood for the rest of their life, right? For example, if they have been to jail for 3 years, it would be forever in their record, right? When they breach this, thus they won't be hired no matter how popular their name or big their reputation is, right? But then engaging to OO about the principle of nature of labor to be awarded. If the metric of awards on OO is to cater so much to the clients and the quantity that they would take, then they would also be overworked, right? So then we question how this principle is going to be big. But our principle is way better because it is exactly unjustified for you to do this at the very first place. And they want to make it more accessible, but no process from OO. How can this manifest, right? CO will give you more quality, where OO only wants more quality. Quantity is less important because lawyers affects people's livelihood and also the amount of trust that they have to the government, right? And then secondly, on how this can create a more check and balances, which is exclusively going to be only on CO, right? Lawyers go to law schools for years, getting that accreditation, time, money, and effort that they put out, sleepless nights to memorize all of the syllabus, all of the undang-undang, for example. It is very weird for them to suddenly throw all of these efforts for like 5 to 10 years to get the credible accreditation for them for the sake of an award, right? 10 years career down the drain just for one mistake, right? And then secondly, law firms have to be acknowledged by the government and the state, and it's incredibly difficult to get this accreditation at the end of the day. So we question what is the incentive for them at the very first place to actually do bad to get these awards at the end of the day. But then why then this thing is very important, right? CO creates more accessibility for smaller lawyers and law firms to be able to emerge from undergrounds. Because like what I've said, media loves to cover things like zero to hero, right? These types of incentives, it gives the lawyers in itself incentive to do better because they know that, I come from a smaller law firm, but it's okay because I can get those awards because I can get those coverage at the end of the day. Why is this coverage the biggest incentive for these lawyers, right? Because this affects their employability. This affects how much they would be hired by more people or increase their credibility, increase their rate, for example, and those type of stuff, right? How can this help the underprivileged then? The underprivileged lawyers or smaller law firms, right? Firstly, smaller law firms and lawyers can get recognitions. How can they get recognitions, right? Was it likely for them to get more coverage exclusively because of awards? Exactly because OG says that the awards are such a huge thing, like word title, lawyer of the year. Media loves those kinds of story, right? If the worst case on our side that lawyers are indeed that bad but still win using their connections or whatever they may say, people will be bored and question how they always win, right? Because it is very weird for one certain certain lawyer to always be lawyer of the year for 5 consecutive years, right? But it then gives the avenue for lawyers to actually do good, gives the check and balances for these people to actually compete with each other, do good regardless of how big the law firms are. This then can trickle down to the underprivileged law students even to do better, because even if they come from a very small university in like a kampung, for example, they can get a chance to actually have a bigger name within these awards because they have the incentive and they know that the media would want to cover them at the very first place, right? And then this also answers the burden of OG that said we should play in the government point, right? Exactly, because this is the government point. The better quality of these lawyers means better trust to the government, because less mistakes of court ruling will happen, less mistakes of giving 10 years of punishment instead of 2 years, for example, for someone that is already a victim would be less likely to happen because of the quality of lawyers at the very first place. Thus, this is exclusively to awards because this gives the avenue for smaller and talented law firms and lawyers to actually have the avenue because it's a word title at the end of the day. Thus, we already tackle OG's claim of nepotism, the OG's claim of unclear parameter, because those types of stuff is going to exist at the very first place. The check and balances then is better than what OO already have said. Thus, proud to oppose.
Thank you for the speech. To close the case in government, I call upon GovWhip. Here.
My pronouns is he or him. Testing, yeah. I'll start in 3, 2, 1. We think what OG counter proposal is still missing is the principal justification on why then banning the whole like award thing for lawyers is going to be good then. CG will do that job, panels. We think that the better and much fairer evaluation for like those lawyers to be celebrated based on their like achievements for these law firms would just to be a good lawyer rather than being the best lawyer, right? How does this look like then? Firstly, good lawyer looks like where you can still seek your interests to get like good reputation, right? But you do it exactly not because like your intention of wanting like to win or to be like the best lawyer in the whole world, right? But this means that you would still like do your job in the without like prioritizing certain case, i.e. like you're going to take like harder case where you would take like murders or like homicide case or abuse case where you would know that if you win that specific case, you're going to like get a lot amount of merit or recognition that will make you win that award title, right? You would likely or you would take like case that would likely like you can win 100% like for those lawyers or law firms. It means that you neglect the public case where they're like the most vulnerable target or the most vulnerable actor, right? But when they need these lawyers' help, like you harm the lawyer's reputation as a whole in like the whole status quo, right? If you do these things. Now, on our side, it's likely the likely manifestation is going to be like for these lawyers is that they're going to have more meaning on their job. They would want this would lead to them wanting to like pursue or do their job better, right? It's going to be creating a better productivity compared to OO. Let's take a look on the show like The Good Doctor, right? Note that the show doesn't like push the glorification of like workers like to become the best on their field, but in the end of the day, what they push is that them being just like doing their job, being a good worker means that there's not going to be added pressure for these like public worker, right? Because they can still get good reputation as long as they like have better intention at the end of the day for like the whole society, right? In our side, lawyer can just like focus and actually contribute to society, and like vice versa, where like the society will like help them give like good testimonies, right? To like at least have them to be like a good lawyer and not exactly be the best lawyer. Secondly, being a good lawyer and law firm reduces like your reputation on accepting any case that is going to like harm or like be in the bad case of or the public society, right? It means that you're not going to like to take a case that is going to like already under scrutinized by like the public where it's a bad case, right? Good lawyers who are represented by smaller law firm is going to be more benefited in our side. They do so likely because like every single law firm in status quo on opposition side or like the law firms are like crazy or obsessed to go for like every single case or only case that will ensure them their wins, right? So like these like good lawyers who have like better principle on their side, they won't be aligning with those like law firm principle, which is why they would go to like a smaller law firm that is having the aligned principle where they would just like take case that actually matters and contribute to society, right? And our side, you give these good lawyers more chance to show their capabilities, and you give them better platform for other people to agree, right? For people to agree that they deserve that chance, right? Which is why the vulnerable actors on this debate should be the good lawyers and like the good law firms, right? Not exactly like all lawyers, right? Let me engage directly to OG then. Why then like we topple over OG? I think we already give you like a better principle justification on like why banning the award is going to be good anyways, right? We give you like more elaboration on like accessibility issues for like good lawyer who's like represented on like smaller law firms, which is like the vulnerable actor, and like they're just like they can like get better productivity. I'll engage more on like all the benches, especially on OO and CO. Then I'll give you more analysis on like why the award title is like not good or like it should be banned, right? Firstly, note that the title literally changes every year, right? This means like i.e. Oscars, Emmys, like you can take a look at that, like where every single actors or singers would just be like changed, it would shift every year where they like they don't have any significance on that award, right? It means like it comes and go, like you do all the principal harm already on like opposition side where they push to take like harmful case for like the society, and the next year it might not be you who's the best lawyer, right? No, thank you. Secondly, the award has no valuation or metric on which one is more important, right? Note that the info slide literally states that there is like multiple awards, i.e. like lawyer of the year, deal of the year, top 30 lawyer under like 30 years old, right? It means like there's literally like no valuation on like which award is like more important, because there's so many awards, but at the end of the day, on opposition side, you can only let the privileged lawyer or law firm to like enter those competitions, right? It's just going to be those people entirely then. Thirdly, CO, your only check and balance would only work after the lawyer is already nominated, right? Note that in the info slide, the way that these lawyers or law firms can get themselves into the award or like to get nominated or to put their name out there is through money and connections, right? It means that they can literally just get themselves in there. It means that your check and balance is not going to be like, it's not going to like affect before how if these lawyers or law firms have already like entered themselves in. This means that the damage, like if let's say like they are actually exposed that they're doing cheating on etc., it's going to be bad for like the whole lawyer and law firm in like a certain country. Like their whole reputation is going to be ruined, right? On CO side. Fourthly, then your the way you say like the competitions are inherently good is like so generalizing on like all certain case. Not that i.e. lawyers, especially like doctors, no thank you, have more to lose on their field if they like do these sorts of competition, right? Compared to us who's doing a debate competition where we don't have the same type of things like these lawyers or doctors are going to lose on their side, right? I.e. like for these lawyers, they're going to lose their reputation, their work, etc. Means that the harm would manifest worse on opposition side compared to like us, right? For these workers. Fourthly, then it's going to be unfair for the good lawyers. Like I've already told you that like this, the small like CO's case on like small uni lawyer would have like or like students would have better chance to like get themselves out there. Basically, it's like so incorrect. Why? Because like they grow in that local place, right? This means that they have different like problems or like laws that is going to be less mainstream in the more capital area, let's say like Jakarta, where they're like in, for example, Papua. Obviously, they're going to have like different. Those underprivileged students are going to have different like a case where they're going to prioritize. Basically, it's not going to be aligned with their principle, right? It's not going to have the same principle where they're just suddenly going to go mainstream and only care about those cases. Because on the opposition side, you only forces these underprivileged people to like focus on doing bad case that is not going to contribute to society, right? That is likely manifest going to happen in opposition side. So proud to propose.
Thank you for the speech. To close the debate overall, I call upon opposition whip. Here.
Okay, gender pronoun share her, and if you want to POI, then probably I would prioritize opening. Nepotism and privilege will always become an issue inside this world, regardless of banning lawyer awards, right? That is the thing that CO is trying to posit to you inside this debate. But when firms and lawyers are actively being exposed in front of the media, for example, for all of these awards, there is more urgency for the metrics to actually become fair at the end of the day, more check and balances for all of these firms, for example, and most importantly, increasing the opportunity for smaller firms to actually compete in the market and have better quality of lawyers as well. I think CG tried to come up to you and say that, oh, this nomination is only going to be check and balance after they actually win the award, right? I think this is that good exactly because people are able to criticize these lawyers if they are indeed that incompetent in the first place. Therefore, you eliminate all the bad actors or all of the bad lawyers that's just trying to get all of these awards through nepotism or just through the privileged settings that you have in terms of their firms, for example, or in terms of their own connection. I think exactly because of that, we're able to eliminate all the bad actors, all of the bad lawyers, then we're able to have more quality lawyers in the other side of the house on CO to make sure that you're able to cover even more small cases, for example, or to actually cover even more crucial cases that these people are actually experiencing. Therefore, we actually co-opt all the benefit that CG tries to talk about on how you're able to help more people, to help more of the vulnerable people that are actually suffering on the ground. But let's talk about opening cases first, right? I think OG's entire claim is pretty simple. They talk to you about two things. Firstly, on the unclear parameter that you have within these lawyer awards itself. But I don't think this is going to be a charitable engagement then, because firstly, there's always going to be objective metrics to how you win inside these lawyer awards, exactly because private institutions, they all have different types of metrics, for example, to make sure that you're able to nominate the right lawyer or the right firm, for example. I.e., what are the degree of impact that your pitching has already done towards society, how much vulnerable actor that you're actually trying to protect, how much you contribute to your social issues. They're all terms and conditions that you're able to actually achieve in terms of getting the awards at the end of the day, right? But secondly then, they try to talk about nepotism, privilege, and monopoly, and so on. I think O did try to engage to this, but I think it's pretty dismissive when they say that, oh, firms and all of these committees, they understand law, therefore they're not subjected to profit orientation, when I think OG has already established it, that if profit is in front of you, then you are subjected to actually prioritize the money they will get, and so on. So then 4 responses that comes exclusively from CO, right? Firstly, I think there's already internal motivation for these lawyers to not manipulate your data or utilize nepotism, because the selection process puts your entire career at stake, right? Obviously, lawyers don't want to get these backlashes because they have already dedicated their entire career to actually study about law, for example, to get into expensive law schools, to study about undang-undang for the entire 4 years, for example, or even more, to understand and actually get the approval from your government, for example, to have that license to get into court, and so on. So I think exactly because you do not want to get your career lost, for example, you do not want to use nepotism or even use all of the privilege that you have to actually get the lawyer awards as well. But secondly then, I also told you how law firms are also pressured by the award to become better and sign up with fair metrics or even fair cases that you actually implemented. In cases where nepotism or monopoly actually happens, then most likely law firms are even more subject to boycotting, and so on. This means that if law firms are profit-oriented, they need to make sure the documents that you submit and the awards that you get is actually legitimate for you to actually garner more customers or more clients inside the future, to make sure that you are credible and factual as well. This is instead way better in CO because it incentivizes the law firms to allocate more resources to lawyers, for example, to provide better facilities for them to access data for investigation, more protection, for example, and etc. That is the reason why you prove we're able to have better quality and actually better protection for these lawyers as well. But thirdly then, we think lawyers' awards are also usually published in news outlets or even media. This means the results are always subjected to publication, and therefore the result will have to become fair. This means that A, media is always open to criticism, assuming that there is going to be nomination, for example. If there is false nomination, then clients or even public can always comment and criticize the award. So the exposure to unfairness or even privilege-based nomination that OG is so afraid of is always going to be eliminated at the end of the day. But secondly then, media institutions are also very diverse, right? They are state-owned, private-owned, or even independent journalists, for example, to always expose all of these false nomination, because you're always going to be obsessed with creating controversies and expose misuse of power, nepotism, and so on. Exactly because media has that internal motivation to actually create an easy tagline to capture the people's attention, and so on. So this is the unique contribution then from CO that's able to take down all of OG's concern that talks about nepotism, monopoly, and so on. But fourthly then, I think on the flip side, engaging with OG's worst case scenario, I think they conceded on the POI that nepotism or privilege-based background will always exist, right? This proves to you that A, all of their harm is inexclusive, instead they backfire the entire case because nepotism will always exist and it's going to be worse than their side of the house, exactly because you do not have all of the check and balances that you have from media, from society, and so on. Therefore, the ability for people to actually know which lawyer is good is then eradicated on their side. I think also metric then for paycheck and so on is then less important inside this debate because lawyers are always still going to be paid anyway, right? So the weighing is then on CO on how we're able to prove to you why our metric uplifts most of these underprivileged lawyers, for example, for them to have more resources, to have diverse nominations such as the best regional lawyer, for example, for them to actually be empowered, to have that platform, for you to actually be nominated inside it and have that career being more competitive and so on. But moving on to our clashes then, right? And how granting lawyer award improves the law and the quality of it in and of itself. Before that, OG. I think I already proved to you 4 reasons as to why that's not going to happen, right? The flip side is that bias, if it still exists, it also exists even if you do not have these lawyer awards as well. Because you're always connecting with people, you're always taking in cases, but there's no check and balance that comes from the media to expose all of the bad things that these law firms or even lawyers do under OG's role. So if bias is an issue, it's way worse both on government bench. But moving on to our case trend and how granting lawyers actually improve the quality of law. Because I think in order for gov bench to win, they need to prove the justification for why the ban is that necessary. We give you 2 metrics then on CO. First, on legitimacy, I think my member has already explained to you all the process to why application is not as bad as what OG talks about. So registration fee is not going to be insanely expensive, for example. Exactly when the award is that important, there's going to be updated metrics as well, i.e. best lawyer, top pro bono lawyers, and so on. So there is a diversification. But secondly then, on the benefit and harm, I think O talks about helping smaller firms, but never explain how significant the award is going to be and how it helps lawyer. Because A, presumably, lawyer awards poses a huge exposure for society to recognize the firm because the process of selection is it lists out all the possible nominees for the sake of market observation and so on. But secondly then, nomination makes it easier for people to pinpoint the best firms and therefore triggers all the competition and triggers all the competitive advantage for people to actually become better. Why is this going to weigh over OO then? Because we're able to prove to you why the quality of these lawyers is going to immensely increased comparatively to just the existence of the lawyer. I think this directly clashes as well with CG's case because they talk about how good lawyer is already enough, but that's not going to be enough, right? Because there's diverse amount of cases that exist within society. So if their lawyers on their side is just mediocre level, then the harm is even worse on their side because you can never fight for justice. These underprivileged society can never get protected. Instead, they get trapped for transaction and all of that because lawyers will always have to be paid and so on. So the way is on how COs win over every benches because we prove how we increase the quality of lawyers as well. Thank you.
Thank you for the speech that marks the end of the debate. Because this is a silent round, all debaters can just go proceed to UTCC directly. All right, best of luck for breaking, everyone.